Welcome to the On the Spot podcast, where we talk to people from all walks of life and recovery. Brought to you by your favorite sober lounge, probably the only sober lounge in Phoenix. I don't know. There might be another one, but I didn't do the research. It's called The Spot. It's on 43rd and Northern in Phoenix, Arizona, where they host several meetings every day, cultivate a positive environment of fellowship and recovery that supports sponsorship and the 12 steps. It's also a nonprofit that does a lot of good for people in and outside of the rooms. Today, we're talking to a man who is a pillar in his community. He is part of the men's group that I go to, and he also runs one of the biggest recovery centers in North Dakota, Turtle Mountain Recovery Center, which focuses on serving the tribal community and is located on Chippewa land. This is the amazing Clayton Bubs Slater. How are you doing this morning, man? Thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
I'm excited. I've been looking forward to it since we talked last week and trying to mentally prepare myself because I've never done something like this. But all in all, it's a good thing.
Awesome, man. Yeah, so before we get into your story, because I definitely want to ask you about that, could you just go into what your role is at Turtle Mountain Recovery and what the mission there kind of is?
So our recovery center is located on the Turtle Mountain Indian Reservation, and we face you know trying to resolve our community issues with drug addiction and alcoholism. It's pretty rapid here. The facility's new. We actually just celebrated our 1 year anniversary with opening up a residential. Otherwise, we were just strictly an IOP program. So what I do in my job is I am a residential supervisor. I oversee about anywhere between 10 and 16 clients and then about 12 staff, well, about 10 staff members right now. So that's what I do.
That is awesome, man. So yeah, I was doing some research, and it is one of the biggest Native American recovery centers in that area, if not the biggest. What were some of the things that you guys what were some of the reasonings behind starting the residential center? Did you guys just see the need in the community for that and then just try to meet that need, or was there always a plan to start a residential?
They actually have another facility in town here. I live in a very small community, but it seemed like that place was always full at like max capacity, and there was always the need of people wanting or trying to get better. So we'd have to send them off to different places. So I guess like our tribal leaders felt like it was a necessity to better strengthen our community.
That is excellent, man. I'm really glad that you guys were able to open up and serve the people that definitely need it. Recovery is needed everywhere, but especially in certain areas. And yeah, that's kind of what I want to get into now is your story. I think you have a really interesting story from what I've been told. So yeah, if you kind of just want to walk us through your story, I'll ask some questions and we'll just sort of get into it.
So my troubles, I guess, began when I was about 17. I got into opiates real bad. 17 years old, you're a kid, and and this was in the early 2000s at like where you can just go get prescription medications anywhere. We would shop around from pharmacy to pharmacy, and we're very rural. So you can literally drive 20 miles to the next town or 10 miles to the next town and just fill your script. And that's what we would do. You'd go in to get like a tooth pulled. That's what I do. I'd go get a tooth pulled and I'd get this script and keep the script, and I just shopped around everywhere I could. And I did that for opiates. I think I did from I was age 17 till I was about 23. I had been to treatment multiple times up to being like 23 years old. I met my son's mom, who is now my ex-wife, but we got married and I thought I could quit due to just, finding being married. She kind of caught on to things right away and kind of gave me an ultimatum. And I stopped doing opiates, but I started to drink more. I noticed, thinking that, well, as long as I'm not doing opiates and just drinking and we're socializing, like, hey, this is okay. Not knowing anything about how addiction works, not reading the big book, not doing any type of step work. So, things didn't work out between her and I. We got divorced like 4 years later. So I was clean off of opiates for like 4 years, just white knuckling it, not going to meetings, like just straight doomed basically. Now that I think about it and look back, like not working any type of program. and had no spirituality whatsoever. We got divorced, and I just fell deeper, went right back into opiates, and I didn't progressively start. I fell right off. I fell off right where I left off, basically. And so I started doing harder opiates. Went from like small doses, small milligrams of like hydrocodone and oxycodone to just, you know, smoking oxy 30s. And to be honest with you, the first time I did it, I didn't like it because it didn't really do anything to me. And I just, for whatever reason, I kept doing it. And that went on for Jesus. I don't know. I'm a 24, 34, 35. I think I finally I finally the fentanyl epidemic kind of hit here, and I I remember the first time I smoked fentanyl, and it was just this feeling just engulfed me. Like, why am I spending all this money on all these pills, and when I could buy this one, and it's gonna take me to this limit every single time? And that was not the case. I chased that high for 5 years doing fentanyl. In and out of treatment, in and out of jail, pushed the kids away, pushed the family away, the whole nine. Ended up homeless. You don't want to end up homeless in North Dakota, you'll freeze. And thankfully I had some friends, not friends, acquaintances, who would let me like crash on the couch and stuff like that. And you know, I gotta put this on silent. And and it got progressively worse, and in the big book it talks about this firm resolve that we had, that we're just gonna wake up one day and quit and this is it. I don't know how many firm resolves I've had, probably 1,000, and I would go right back into just active addiction. And then finally, October 25th of 2023 is my official sobriety date. So the day before that, there was the last firm resolve I had. It was either I'm gonna ask somebody for help, or I'm just gonna kill myself because I don't know how to combat this, and I feel like I'm alone. So I'm sure you know him, Tony Johnson. That's my man. Guy saved my life. I thank them from the bottom of my heart.
A place.
I met guys like Greg Thompson, his wife, fiance, Kat, Tony, Michelle, Rachel. I got to give shout outs because these guys are like,
Hey,
yeah.
got to,
And then I was introduced to the Knights, and I found my sponsor, and it just freaking opened my eyes to everything. And it was just like, there's a whole totally different way of living life than the way I was living. So that's pretty
and
much.
and you touched on so many things in that story that like, I mean, I think we've all been through as addicts or alcoholics, but I mean, especially the firm resolve thing, like where you wake up and you genuinely mean, "Hey, I'm gonna quit today." Like, and you can mean it full heartedly, yet somehow not be able to do it. You
Yeah,
know?
we don't play the tape forward. When we get whatever substance we're trying to acquire, there's nothing else in the world that matters. This is what I'm going to do today because this is ultimately what I love to do. I love to coat my emotions, and I don't like to feel stuff, and I just don't care.
And, and like I was a heroin addict. I did fentanyl. I did, I smoked meth. And like, let me tell you something about the like, and I think you could agree with this. Being like kind of homeless, smoking fentanyl, that's the hardest job that I've ever had in my
Yeah.
entire life. I put more work into that than I did anything else. Any other job that I could get today. That's why my work ethic is so good, because that shit's
Yeah.
easy compared to like the
Yeah.
addiction of having a fucking full blown fentanyl addiction. Cause like with heroin, and like I don't mean to compare, but like with heroin, that shit lasts all day pretty much. But fentanyl, you're out there
Yeah.
every 20 minutes needing to
Yep.
smoke, needing to do this, you always gotta hustle, always gotta do this. And I mean, every time I'd wake up miserable and sick, and I would be like, today's the day, I'm gonna quit, I'm gonna check myself in. But let me get high one more time first.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
then 5 days later, I'm still out there. It's freezing cold. My hands are bleeding. I live behind a dumpster, and I'm like, "How did my life get this way?" You know?
Yeah. Yep. And then what most people don't tell you is like, and I'll be straight up honest with you, like I overdosed on fentanyl, you know, one very serious time. And my automatic thought whenever I got out of the hospital on the verge of having a massive freaking heart attack, I was probably 35, 36 years old, was I'm just going to smoke heroin because it's harder to overdose. That was my mindset. So that's what I did. And then when I couldn't find heroin or fentanyl, and I don't even like meth. Like, it just I don't know, but I had to do meth because it's just weird to not get high, you know? Like,
100%.
that's the
And
kinda
like,
addict I was.
I used to do meth when I was dope sick, full well knowing it would just make me worse, but, like, I
Yeah,
just could not be sober, like, I just
yeah,
couldn't do it, you know? And every time I'd wake up to quit that day, as much as I wanted to quit, I didn't wanna be sick a lot more than I wanted to quit, you know what I'm saying? So, I did
yeah,
whatever like, it outweighed, like, the fear of being sick outweighed the want to quit, and at
right,
some point in time, I woke up and I had hit just complete rock bottom where and, like, fentanyl, I don't know, and it's talking to someone else that's done it, I think you could probably relate to this. It does this thing to you where you don't really wanna live anymore, but you're,
right.
like, too scared to kill yourself.
Yep,
So, you're in this perpetual state of, like, agony, and, like, you feel defeated every day. Your confidence is gone. It just destroys me. It just destroyed me, you know?
right, yeah, yeah, that's how I was, like, I didn't care whether I lived. I know I didn't wanna live the way I was living, but at the same time, I didn't care, like, if I got hit by a freaking car, like, if that's better than what I'm doing right now, you know? Like, it's just at least I'll be at some type of peace, you know?
Percent. And, like, and that's the thing, like, for me, when stuff like that would happen, like when I would get arrested or like when, I didn't wanna live anymore, I just didn't want anything to come in between me and my high, you know?
Yeah,
If God was
yep,
gonna kill me, I was okay with it. I just wanted to make sure I didn't die dope sick, you know? 'Cause that was my biggest fear, and going to jail didn't bother me, but
no,
what bothered me was being dope sick in jail, you know?
yeah,
That was my fear. It wasn't like, "Oh, I'm going to jail," because honestly, jail was a welcome change to the way I was living my
yep,
life. I can't tell you how many times the cop car door shut and I felt a sense of relief come
yeah,
over me. Like, finally, I'm gonna be okay for a few weeks. You know what I'm saying? I'll have a roof over my head. I'll
I
have
get
a
to
little bit
eat,
of food.
I get to stay warm, you
Yeah,
know?
exactly. But yeah, no, I mean, and that's the thing. I think that's why the fentanyl epidemic hit certain areas and certain places a lot harder and faster than it did other places because the opioid crisis when it started. That's when I first started doing heroin because I'm from
Yeah,
Florida. That's where I kind of grew up, and the doctor shopping there was very easy when I was young, especially since uh, I was on my dad's insurance until I was 21, so I had, like, decent insurance from my dad's old job, so I could just go to a hospital, and they would be like, "Oh, your insurance is great," and I'd be like, "I stubbed my toe, I broke a toe," or like, I fell down when I was drinking, whoops," and they'd be like, "Oh, you hurt yourself? Here's some opiates," and, like, today,
yeah,
it's not like that, thank God, it's a
no,
lot more regulated, but yeah, back then, it was just the Wild West, they were just throwing opiates at you, you know?
and the bad thing about here is you get IHS, you basically get free healthcare, you know, so you don't have to go, you don't have to have insurance. You can go to IHS and say, hey, I went seen the doctor, and okay, Rolla, like, it's off the reservation, it's like 7 miles away. You go to Rolla, like you said, stub a toe, stub a finger, hurt your back, take your script from there, come over here, get them for free. You get, you know, and then once you ran out over here, you can take that same script, go back 7 miles and pay probably $40, and you'd have a whole script of whatever pain meds they were giving you.
Yeah, it was crazy, like, and, like, the thing is, like, I didn't even really like opiates until I was much older in life, so, like, what I would do is I would go get the script, sell the script, and get what I actually wanted, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
which at the time was crack and alcohol, you know? But, like, then when I turned 23, I got into a really bad dirt bike accident and I shattered my elbow and they gave me like a bunch of Percocet. So like I got like
yeah,
physically addicted to Percocet, ran out of that, and I was in like Washington DC and I couldn't get pills. And my buddy was like, "You can't be sick in front of my kids. Try heroin." And because he was doing heroin, and like I was like, "I don't know." And he's like, "It'll make you feel better." And that's all I needed to hear. And from
yeah.
then it was just off to the races, you know?
Yep.
And
Why am I even wasting my time with these
stupid pills,
yeah,
like
just smoke some heroin, we'll be okay.
'cause he told me he was like, I was terrified of needles, right? Like, I
Yeah,
grew up terrified of needles. Now I have all these tattoos and stuff, you could never tell, but most people with a bunch of tattoos are actually scared of needles, which is the weirdest it's a weird thing, but it's
yeah,
kinda true. But I was, like, terrified of needles, and he was like, "Dude, you're wasting your time and money smoking and snorting this stuff, like, you should just shoot it." And I'm
Yeah.
like, "What does it make you feel like?" He's like, "Do you remember when you were in the hospital and they put Dilaudid?" And before he even finished the sentence, I said, "I'm in." Uh,
Yeah.
you know? And yeah, and the one thing is though, is like when I started doing opiates a lot, I started drinking less and less and less. And I
Yep.
was always a terrible alcoholic, like terrible, to the point where people are like, "We can't be around you when you're drinking," you know? And so I thought I was bettering myself by doing opiates because I was drinking less, and I thought I was improving my life, but God, was I wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, let's get into a little bit of so I think it's so interesting that you guys serve like a marginalized community out there. You know what I'm saying? That desperately needs the help, you know? And I know that with the IHS stuff, there was a few years ago in Phoenix, I don't know if you remember this, but they were opening all those IHS houses and letting
Yeah.
people like the big scam that happened, you know?
Yeah. That happened just in all honesty, the night before I left to Phoenix, I watched that. It was so I started dipping into Phoenix because I had already got it set up to where I was leaving the next day, and I turned on the Phoenix news, and it's them invest. It was Fox 10 News where they do them investigative reports, and it was about them fraudulent treatment centers. So I was scared to death because I don't know Tony from Adam, and I call him and I'm like, okay, this guy's not talking to me like somebody he talked to me like a bro. Like this guy's not he didn't talk there was some red flags, I'm not gonna lie. But he assured me that he was gonna pick me up from the airport. So as I'm going to the airport, I'm thinking about watching this interview with these fraudulent treatment centers, and I'm thinking I'm going to the worst place in Phoenix, not knowing that one of the reasons I chose to go to that place is I have a friend from here who she worked or she had just went to treatment at Apex, and that was kind of the main reason I went chose that facility to go to try to get into. I just kind of subbed it out and waited it out, and I was fortunate enough to go there, but that was right around that time when all that was going on.
Yeah, and that's scary, you know? And and it's crazy because, you know, and that gives I think that gives the whole recovery community sort of a tarnished, almost a bad name to the people that are out there using. It almost gives them an excuse like, well, look, they're all scammers, you know?
Yeah,
I want to get sober, but these people are fucking scammers, you know?
yeah,
And it just makes things even harder to find recovery, to get better, you know?
yeah,
And I was gonna say, like, so, you guys deal with the IHS almost exclusively at your place, right?
yes.
Did what happened here have any effect on the way people viewed your facility out there? Or did it kinda not affect it? It wasn't like an issue out there?
The only thing it didn't really affect it here. We always have like the want and need of people to come to treatment, but then I get people that come through the door or people that know that I'm back because I just moved back here last April, so I've got to kind of share my story a little, probably not as much here as I did when I was in Phoenix, but I do have people that come to me or like their loved ones and be like, hey, how do we get like our loved one or how do I get into treatment in Phoenix? And I stress to them like right now it's kind of hard with the insurance BS that's going on over there. And it's I said I was fortunate enough that I got there just as all this stuff was going on. So I didn't have to like establish residency, and I mean I didn't have to establish it right away where like now they make you wait like a month or something before they your insurance will kick in because you have to have residency established. I've tried a few times with contacts I've made in Phoenix to get people out there, and they've stressed to me that it's kind of touchy with bringing people from out of state right now. So I kind of what I try to do is I try to get them into my facility, at least for a month, and then if they still want that option to go to Phoenix, then we try to work something out with. We haven't got to that point yet, but it's lined up for them if they ever want to choose to go to like another facility from here.
So, alright, and this might be a completely odd question. So, I'm just asking because I wanna know the way that it works. If somebody out there is a member of a tribe, right? And they come to Phoenix, and there's also a tribe in Phoenix, would they be considered a resident because they're a member of that tribe?
Well, see, like Okay, like I know there's like probably 5 tribes up here, and one of them they're kind of out in the western part of the state where their reservation is basically on the oil patch. We have a real big oil patch over here, and a lot their tribe gets a lot of money from the oil. So their tribe has their own actual insurance. Like where Big Man's from, their tribe they got money. We don't have that means here. So I know like in some of their cases, their tribe would actually send their tribal members to Phoenix and pay for them to go to treatment.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
And, and that is really cool, I think, for the people and I say this about, rock stars or anybody that has, like, where financial instability was never a factor, and you know what I'm saying? Like, if they had, like, the resources to continue using and didn't, like, fall flat broke, like, and chose recovery anyway, I really respect that, you know?
Yeah.
Because for me, I had no choice. I was dead broke. I couldn't afford dope. Like, I couldn't eat. I couldn't do nothing. Had I had the means to an end to just continue that life, I don't know if I'd be here today.
Yeah,
You know?
me neither.
I think it's fucking awesome that they choose recovery and, even though by all means they're pretty well off, they could just not do it, they could
Yeah.
just continue on that path and be financially stable and probably have a place to live, clothes on their back, food in their stomach, but they still I think it's that universal thing of like, it doesn't really matter what your outside circumstances are. I think everybody who's an addict at some point feels that shitty, empty feeling on the inside that we can all relate to, and that's probably what propelled them to get better. But yeah, so okay, so where you guys are located, you guys are on a reservation. Do you guys just serve people from that tribe, or do you serve other tribes as well? But it's mainly focused on like the Native American community, correct?
Well, when we first started, we were solely focused on just helping our tribal members, and we had a director before she passed away, bless her soul. But we have a new director now, and so what it is our tribal members get preference, and then it dwindles down to somebody from like a different tribe, and then ultimately it opens up to just anyone.
So when you're making these decisions, when these decisions have to be made and you're on like a reservation, it doesn't have to like it doesn't go through like a local government. It goes through like a tribal council, right?
It
I would
actually
imagine is
Our tribe has no affiliation with our center at all. Just the land that it sits on. We actually
perfect.
have like a board of directors we actually have a board that makes these decisions, and they kind of leave it up to like the chain of command here. Like we have our director, we have 3 LACs, and then so on and so forth. But they kind of leave it up to the director and the LACs to decide, you know, who can come in basically. And ultimately we don't like to turn people away, but we don't have a detox here. We don't, which is really hard because you want to try to keep them on like a 72-hour not using anything, and if it was that easy, people probably wouldn't need to come to treatment, and
Yeah.
it really sucks. It feels like you have your hands tied because when I got into this when I was in treatment, I couldn't figure out what my purpose was or what I wanted to do. I knew I eventually wanted to come home and try to, help people in whatever type of way. So whenever people come to the door with their bags packed here and they're adamant, like, this is it, I need some help. They come in and their UA's dirty for whatever reason, and we have to turn them away, and then you don't see them again, or you see them in jail, or you see them walking on the road, and it's just like, man, these guys were here 2 days ago, like pleading for help and for because of our policies and our procedures with our facility and not being equipped to handle certain types of detoxes, like who knows how long they're going to last, and it gets to be heartbreaking.
I can only imagine because I know for me, if I had to wait, I couldn't not use for 72. I couldn't
No.
not use for 72 minutes, 72 seconds. Like that would have been an impossibility. I think that would have deterred my recovery 100%. So is having a detox facility something that you guys plan to do in the near future, or is that in the works?
We're trying to work on one. The only thing is like where I could see it being an issue is the wages competing with IHS and the benefits and all that good stuff, because that's basically a government job where you're gonna come and turn, you want to pull a nurse away from there to run a detox center where you're probably not going to get paid as much. Things like that is. But I
Yeah,
mean,
I could see that being an issue, you know? And unfortunately, that's the way it is, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's gonna be hard to fill those positions, I'm sure, but I'm sure there's people out there that would take less money to help people, right? Like, you would
yeah,
hope that, because like, you would hope that there's people in the medical community that, are doing it because of the passion they have for it, not for the paycheck, you know what I'm
right,
saying?
exactly.
That's our hope, but, everybody's gotta eat, I
Yeah.
get that, you know? So, okay, all right, so now what I wanna ask is, so what is the main difference, if any, in serving the tribal community, like the Native American community, as opposed to have you served in other communities as well, or has it primarily been in the, Native American community?
Well, I worked in Phoenix, but even there, a lot of it was Native American. Every facility I worked at was majority Native American people. Um, I don't know why that is, but I do have friends from all walks of life, and I've got to listen to their story and their testimony and their struggles and their successes. I guess I guess the uh the only difference between like a native versus a non-native is things that are a lot more normalized here that aren't anywhere else. The culture is different, and like I said, just things are normalized here probably that aren't normal anywhere else, especially in Native American communities.
Yeah, and I don't know, so I can only imagine that. Do you feel that, I know there's gotta be a lot of generational trauma that comes into play when dealing with the Native American community. Do you see that as, like, a roadblock, or do you have to approach that a different way than you would, like, someone else?
It's touchy, because people are sensitive, especially when it comes to being alcoholics or addicts. It doesn't matter where you come from or what you do. People are just very, very touchy individuals. But yeah, I've noticed here you do kind of have to. I mean, not even here, just working with Native American people, you kind of have to be almost sensitive to a sort. You know what I mean? Like I know in my case, I can only speak for myself here. I didn't want any of that. I needed somebody to tell me basically what to do, not what I wanted to hear, but what I needed to hear. Like I don't want you to be nice to me. Like I'm not obviously the people I work are the people I went to treatment with, they became more than just my friends, they became my family, but they didn't sugarcoat things for me. They didn't, I didn't need somebody to pat me on the back. I tried that. That stuff didn't work for me. So I had some very, very good teachers along the way.
And and yeah, and that's again, that's why I love the group that we go to, and, I mean, and I think it's incredible. I think that the universe of all the people you could have called in Phoenix, you get Tony Johnson,
Yeah,
who's one of the most well-respected people in our community. He's just an amazing man, kind, loving, just really gives a shit about people and recovery, and is fucking amazing at what he
yeah,
does.
he is.
People are just meant to help people, and, like, that's their purpose in life, and that dude is definitely one of them, you know? Uh and, like, I think, for me, I surrounded myself with a group of guys who, like, didn't coddle me. They cared about my feelings to an extent, you know what I'm saying? What was more important was what I was willing to do about them, you
Right.
know? Not how I felt, but what I was willing to do about how I felt, and, I think that's super important, because, dude, the guys around you are just trying to save your life at the beginning, you
Exactly.
know?
You know what? The first time I ever went to a Knights meeting, I went with Greg Thompson. We were driving back from our class, and we lived off of 67th and Cactus is where our house was. And he's like, I'm gonna pick you. He said, how serious are you about your recovery, Clayton? I said, Greg, I'm 2,000 miles away from my family. I'm gonna be here for Thanksgiving. I'm gonna be here for Christmas. I'm gonna be here for my birthday. I'm gonna be here for my baby's birthday. I said, it doesn't get any more serious than this. Like if I'm not gonna take this shit serious, I'm not gonna take it serious at all. Like especially right now. And he said, well, I'm gonna pick you up at I don't know. I think it was 5:30 or something. He said, I'm gonna pick you up for this meeting. I'm gonna introduce you to some people. We're gonna find you a sponsor, and he said, probably one of my he told me himself this is one of my favorite meetings to go to, and he said because it's a group of people that don't give a fuck about your feelings, are there to save your life, and that always stuck with me, you know. So
Yeah.
I am forever grateful for the nights. I freaking that was my favorite meeting. Um, yeah, it changed my life to go to that meeting, you know.
Yeah, and you know, and that's the like so because like my sponsor, you know, Brian Moore is my sponsor, and like I've known him for many many years, and you know, and like that's the thing, like I have him as a sponsor, and he's a super nice guy. He's very sensitive to the way that I feel. Like he allows me to express my emotions. Like, he's walked me through the steps in such a way that like you know emotional sobriety is a very important part of like how he take took me through the steps, but and I needed that. But I also needed the group of guys around me because, like, it's your sponsor's job to walk you through the steps, take to consider your feelings, and then present you with a tactful solution. The other guys around me, that's not their job. You
No,
know, their job
no,
is there to support me and make sure I'm alive, you know?
right, right.
And, uh, and it's so funny because like I said, this isn't my first time in recovery. Like I had some time many years ago, and it was weird because everybody that I was at the New Solutions with 10 years ago is still sober today. Like the 3 guys that were in my room with me, and they're still my 3 best friends. And if I call them bitching about something today, like they shut that shit down
Yeah,
immediately. You know what I'm saying? Like I know better. You know, like when I'm frustrated about finances or finding a job or like, you know, not being able to do this, that, or the other, you know, their answers are very solution oriented with little regard to how I feel because if I get caught up in how I feel, I'm not focused on the solution.
right. Yep, that's like well, Johnny Lazzaro's my sponsor.
Love that guy.
He
Love
wasn't
him.
my sponsor right away. I wish I could say he was. I had a couple other guys that were kind of like just jerking me around while I was in Phoenix, whatever. I understand that was just somebody else's plan, not mine. And then I had asked Johnny to sponsor me, and then we there was no once we started there was no stopping. It's I started to for the first time ever I finally started to read like my big book, and it made me understand things a lot more.
So okay, yeah. Anyway, sorry about that. A little bit of
You're good.
technical difficulty. This is not a professional operation. You know, we ought never be organized, right? Isn't that one of the but, yeah, so, okay, you were saying that, you know, you got Johnny Lazario as a sponsor who is fucking awesome, by the way, like, love that guy. I did an H&I for him once where I brought a meeting to it's almost like a second chance place where instead of going to jail, they put you in this, like, state rehab, and, like, it's like for the dudes in lieu of jail, they go to this rehab center that's run by the state, and
Yeah,
it was a cool experience.
I think I had to go share my story there one time. It was kind of out in like northern Glendale, maybe
Yeah, where you,
somewhere up
like,
there.
go in and they have to badge you in, it's almost like a facility yeah, it's crazy, it's pretty nuts, and the dudes yeah, it's nuts, and, like, and it's cool, man, like, I think he does a lot for the community, I mean, a lot of those dudes in the Knights do, I think
Yeah,
that's why I love being a part of the group because they promote service, they promote sponsorship, they promote recovery, um, it's just a great group of guys, but yeah, so as you were saying, you had a couple of dudes that were jerking you around. You met Johnny. You guys got to work, and then and things went good from there. You know.
yeah, yep. I couldn't have asked for a better sponsor. We come from two different walks of life, and I know they kind of say find somebody that you can relate to. I knew nothing about this man. I just knew I sat behind him at the retreat, and I just liked the way he carried himself with the group of guys he was with. And I was like, hey, I'm just gonna shoot your shot basically with this guy and see if he'll sponsor me because he wasn't my first choice, but I'm glad he decided to sponsor me.
Yeah.
Uh
Yeah. He's such a good dude. So yeah, and kind of getting back to have you noticed? Is there a difference? What's the recovery community like as far as meetings and stuff go in North Dakota versus Phoenix?
Loved Phoenix because you can go to a meeting any hour of any day,
Yeah.
anywhere you want. You're probably I used to go to a lot of meetings at the fellowship hall, the spot, obviously. I love going to the spot. Shout out to Stefan and BMO. I love that place. And
They're
you
the
know,
best bosses ever.
yeah. uh, but then you come here and there's meetings every day. And before I left to Phoenix, they had one meeting a night, and it was about the same 5 or 6 people that were in the meeting all the time. And then I went to Phoenix and I did my treatment and I came home. I think I came home February or January 1st of 2026, I believe. And when I came back here and I went to one of those meetings, the room was full and I couldn't believe it. Like all these guys I used to use with, and everybody wanted to get sober and they were curious on how I got sober and how much time I had and what I was doing. And I always stress, even to this day, I stress finding a sponsor and working your steps. Like that's one of the focal points in my sobriety is that it wasn't that I had just quit doing the drugs. It's that I got to look at myself. I got to all the stuff I had stuffed in, I got to write down on a piece of paper and focus on that. So there isn't very much sponsorship here, especially in our community. But we're trying, we're chipping away. It's getting better. Um,
Yeah, I think between you and Big Man, you guys probably sponsor the entire state. I mean,
yeah,
Big Man still sponsors half of Phoenix.
yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I mean?
And I love Big Man. We text him and I text every morning, and it's always good to get insight from somebody that knows better than I do. So
Yeah,
I use him like a sponsor while I'm here. Anytime I'm in his neighborhood, I call him. We go to meetings together. Anytime where I'm. So he lives in Bismarck. It's about 3 hours away, but one of my kids lives there. So when I go to visit my son, obviously we go out to eat or whatever. But my next thing is like while we're eating, I'm texting Big Man, hey, when can we go to a meeting? Where are we going? Where you want to meet me? What we gonna do? Like just I wish I could sit down and do what we're doing with him so I could pick his brain. I've only got to hear bits and pieces of how he works. I kind of want to see how I can maybe relate to that. We're all relatable. The house looks different on the outside, but we're all the same on the inside.
yeah, you
You
know what
know?
I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's crazy, and I don't know if I'm breaking anonymity or should say this, but he said something super profound at the retreat last time, and it was, about prayer and meditation, and it's like prayer and meditation. It's
Yeah.
one thing, you know what I'm saying? And
Yep.
he's like, "I don't just pray or just meditate." He's like, "That'd be like doing half a line of cocaine, and I've never done half a line of cocaine."
Right.
I do the whole thing,
Yeah.
right? I'm like, "Yeah, it's true." So that really resonated with me for some
Yeah.
reason. But, so yeah, and I think you're right, a lot of people in Phoenix don't realize how lucky we are to have the recovery scene that we have here
Right.
because I've been to other places, like, I was just recently in Florida, and, yeah, there was, like, meetings, but it wasn't the same, if that
No.
makes sense. It's not the same. I went into this
It's
meeting, and on the wall, it said, "Swearing is not a sign of spiritual growth," and I'm like, "I don't think I'm in the right place." Because it was like an open air meeting, and I didn't know what that meant, and it was like, you can't curse, you can't smoke, you can't talk about drugs, and it was just like 70-year-old dudes, alcohol it's like your typical, like, everything that you would think about an AA meeting being bad, it was, but, like,
Yeah.
it was really cool to see because, those dudes had so much recovery, and, like,
Yeah.
they were just it was crazy. It was crazy to be in a room with that much recovery, but yeah, I always try to look for the positive and no matter what
Yeah.
meeting I go to, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't matter to me if it's 70-year-old dudes or if it's
Right.
but it's crazy to me that when I explain, like, where I'm from and the meetings that I go to, they're like, "Oh, recovery can be like that? Like, it can be fun and you can have
Yeah.
a good time in recovery and, like, be around positive people and enjoy your life?" It's not a
Yeah.
death sentence. It's not it's not the end of your life.
That was one thing I was grateful for. So when I got to Phoenix, I got there on a Friday night, and it was right around the Halloween thing they have every year at that little church on like 19th and Dunlap down there somewhere past
Yeah.
that way. And Miles puts it on. It was a CMA Halloween party or something. And then I went to a CMA meeting at the spot, 7:15 on a Monday night, and that environment compared to the environment here were two totally different worlds. Because you go to a meeting here Now this is before they've kind of have a little bit more life to them now. But when I went to a meeting here, it was almost like you were at a funeral. That's what it reminded me of. It was like everybody in there was mourning. And then I went to the CMA meeting at the spot, and I was just like, these tweakers are wild, bro. Like they have the reading where your whole sole purpose is to throw the reader off,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then everything was fun, and everyone was fun, and it was a good meeting. I never seen I never seen so much joy, I guess, basically, in people talking about their recovery, and it made me look at things totally different than what I was looking at. You know, the the open mindedness kicked in right away. Most people struggle with being open minded. I was there 3 days, and I was totally invested in being open minded to everything.
You're right. It's definitely a new take on recovery, and I think that, and for me, when I was in the first taste of AA I ever got, I was 19 years old, and I had to go because of legal obligations. I got a DUI and everything, so they were like, "You gotta go to AA meetings," and, oh, yeah, sorry, the background kinda got messed up because of the internet connection. We had to sell the picture. We only rented the picture for a little while,
That's
so,
fine.
like, we had to give it back, sorry.
That's good.
But, uh but yeah, I never knew recovery could be so lively and so fun, you know?
Yeah.
Like, the meetings that I had went to, I mean, I was in Florida, and I'm not trying to talk down on recovery anywhere, but the meetings that I had went to, like you said, it felt more like a funeral. It didn't feel
Yeah.
like they were having a good time and enjoying their life. So when I started going to meetings in Phoenix, when I first came, it blew my mind. Like, I was like, wow, you can enjoy life and have fun and like talk shit and, be around cool people.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And, and like you said, I definitely encourage everyone out there not to just go to the meetings because they're fun and they're a good hangout, but like to do the work. That's
Right.
that's why those people are so happy. Not because they go to the meetings and hang out with their friends. They're happy because they did the work.
Right. Right.
But yeah, and it's crazy because you had mentioned before you encourage sponsorship because, just being sober for me would never be enough. Like, it's just like an addict, like me being just sober would never be enough. Like, I have to continually grow as a person in order to reach some level of happiness.
Right. You have to write some stuff down, man. You gotta read your book. You gotta talk to your sponsor. You know, that's what I mean. For me, that's what worked. I'm still in contact with Johnny every morning. He
That's
uh
awesome.
he probably doesn't like that I text so early because I get up about 4:30 here, and with the time difference, it's probably 3:30 there. So first thing I do is shoot him a text message. But it's been like that since day one. You know.
Yeah, and yeah, he's one of those guys that seems like he goes 24/7 from, like, the minute he
Yeah.
wakes up to the minute he goes to bed, he's just of service,
Yep.
which is incredible? Uh, and I was even talking to my sponsor about this last night, but it's weird because at almost 2 years, I'm doing more AA today than I was in my early recovery, if that makes it like, but it's because I'm being of service, like, I have more
Right.
things today that I'm able to do?
Right. Yeah. So like the facility I work at, we have one vehicle. It's to transport people, and like I said, we probably have 40 people in here between residential treatment all the way down to just day treatment type stuff. So in order, I stay active in my recovery by taking them to meetings also. Like in my free time, I just like if I'm not at my barn, we own a ton of horses just north of here. And
Equine therapy, I like it.
well, we race them. We race horses. That's
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 so
what we do.
cool.
We race horses, so we have about 25 of them right now. And when I'm free from there, I'm always here picking up guys I sponsor to take to meetings. We'll travel 300 miles to go to a meeting. Like the closest night meeting to us is where Big Man stays, and it's about 280. It's on Tuesday nights. We've hit that a couple times. Drove there, went to the meeting, drove home. Or hit like another meeting with Big Man and them just to hang out. And try to get my guys a different perspective on other people's recovery, and to be open minded, and not to like there's things that work for other people, and and to get them to see like, okay, my way doesn't work, you know. So we go to different meetings all over. We're road warriors, that's for sure.
That is awesome, you know, because I mean, it's definitely incredible to get a different perspective of recovery. And like when you go around different groups of people, you kind of hear the same thing, you know, like you
Yeah.
kind of hear and and it's just crazy that, you know, this book that was written in 1935, you know, this dude in 1935 knew how I would feel almost 100 years later, you know, on the
Right.
inside, where it talks about the complete demoralization. It's just it's crazy. Like, addiction is a language that transcends race, transcends, you know what I'm saying? It goes beyond all of the differences we have, and it's like, I'm just an addict trying to get, you know, sober. I'm just an addict
Right.
trying to improve my life. And, you know, I think that's like the universal language of recovery. And I think you can hear that, you know, in from different groups of people, you know, and it's good to get their perspective on stuff, you know, because who knows who you're going to connect with. That's the important part.
Right. Yeah. Just as long as you're connecting with somebody, it's gonna help someone somewhere.
Absolutely. So yeah, man, thank you so much for doing this today. And I want to say sorry for the technical
You're
difficulties.
fine.
But yeah, so yeah, before we get out of here, like, promote your facility a little bit. Tell us where it's at, how they can get a hold of you. We're gonna put all that information in the comments and in the description of the video for you, like your contact info and stuff, if that's okay, just in case anybody
Absolutely.
needs help while they're out there or they're, you know, curious about what they saw here today, you know?
Yeah. So my name again is Clayton Slater. I work for the Turtle Mountain Recovery Center. We're located in north central North Dakota. We're actually about 6 miles from the Canadian border. We have all levels of care here. We have 3.1, we have PHP, we have transitional living, we have a sober living. We got the whole spiel. If you're looking to get any type of services, the number here is 701-477-8931. And my personal cell phone rings off the hook, but that's fine. That's what I signed up for this job for is 623-389781. To contact me, call me if you need somebody to talk to. I'm always there to either talk or listen. I'm a pretty good listener.
That's awesome, man. And you know, and I'm gonna be stereotypical here for a second, but I'd imagine the Canadians make great neighbors because they're very nice. They're, you know what I'm saying? They're nice people. That's the stereotype about Canadians is they're
Yeah.
just nice people.
Yeah. Well, like I got a lot of kickback from when I was in Phoenix because of the accent. I have a little bit of an accent, so they're like, "Man, you're really nice, but I don't know if you're Canadian nice." You know, so
Yeah.
that was the thing was all the time.
Yeah, I know a couple people from Duluth, Minnesota, and they have like a similar accent, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, do you guys ever go into Canada for meetings or like do you or is it I'd imagine it's kind of hard to cross the border at this point.
Actually, it's not really hard for our tribe because we don't have dual citizenship, but part of our band is from Canada.
Oh, cool.
All we do is we just show our tribal ID and they let us across.
Well, that's cool. Do you guys
Well,
ever
plus
go there for
we
meetings and stuff?
no, I haven't. I probably should. I don't know. Some of these guys that are in my facility, it's hard for felons to cross the border.
Yeah, I have the same issue. That's why I can't go build the house in Mexico. I can't do
Yeah,
that, you know? Well, I mean, I could go to Mexico and help build the house, but I don't think I'd be able to get back across the border. I would just have to make a life in Mexico for a few years,
yeah,
a new life, and that would just be, you know?
yeah. Well, see, like another thing too, like about this facility is, so I came back here. I worked my steps with Johnny, who's the night. I was the night while I was there, and I kind of wanted to. And I had talked to Rich and Ethel and all them guys about maybe starting a nights group up here. Well, I wanted to get some guys through the steps first, so we can expand our meeting rather than just having it me and four people. There are, however many people I sponsored at the time to come to this meeting. So we borrowed some ideas from the nights to start our own men's meeting here, and it's been working pretty good. We get about 30 people, which is really good because our community is so small.
That's really good for
Yeah.
any meeting.
So
That's great.
yeah, we get about 30 guys, and it's not a AA meeting or an NA meeting. It's basically a meeting about holding yourself accountable, and we run the basically the same format as the Knights meeting. We're not at the sponsorship yet. Eventually we'll get there, you know. Yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to it. I got a few guys that are at the end that are getting ready to be done with their step work where they can start sponsoring people and we can expand it and eventually get the Knights going up here.
And that's the beauty of this thing, one person gets sober and then they sponsor 5 guys, maybe 2 of them stay sober and they sponsor another 5 guys and 2 of them, so it just grows and
Yeah,
grows. It's just a growing
yeah,
community. And I think it's super cool that that you went out to North Dakota, and it says in the book sometimes like it's not what we can get out of a meeting, but what we can bring to one.
right,
And
right.
I think you're doing that, man, dude. You're living the principles in all your affairs. I think it's super incredible what you're doing out there for people, and that they can get a hold of you if they're ever out there. Um, so, before we go, do you have any words of advice for anybody that's trying to get into treatment, and having a hard time with the 72-hour thing?
It gets better. It does get better, you know. 72 hours seems like a long freaking time, and when you're in the pits of trying to stay sober, like, it's worth it in the end to wait. If you got to wait the 72 hours, I promise you your life is going to get better. It's going to feel a lot better real soon, you know. Don't give up because there's people out there that care about you, and there's people out there that want to see you succeed in life.
No, I know, like, giving unsolicited medical advice is probably not in either of our wheelhouses, but is there, like, a hospital nearby that they could maybe check themselves into for, like, to an ER and just say, "Hey, I'm going through alcohol withdrawals," or, like, "I'm going through this," and maybe they could help them get through that first 24 to 48 hours?
See, there is like that you can go through the IHS and they hook you up to basically like a banana bag and they hold you for like it depends what you're coming down off of. I've seen alcohol. I've seen like alcohol withdrawal. Well, they'll actually keep you for like 36 hours. But if it's anything else, they kind of hold you for 8. But if I'll let you in on a little secret. If you really want to come to treatment at this facility, being that there isn't a detox here, before you come in for your screening or your evaluation, go get medically cleared at the hospital. That way they can legally keep you. You know what I mean? They're not gonna I'm not gonna say that they're not going to because I've seen it happen on a case to case basis where they would have one of us just run them down to the ER and get them medically cleared. But if people I've seen cases where if they were already medically cleared when they got here and it was in, X amount of hours, they just keep you. Because then it doesn't make us legally liable if something happens. You know what I mean? You always have to take that risk factor into effect. And
Of
I
course.
haven't, yeah, I haven't seen anything really bad happen. People come down in different ways, but if you want to cheat the system a little bit, that's a way to cheat it.
And hey, there's nothing wrong. I mean, if you're in active addiction, you're lying, cheating, and stealing almost every day anyway. Like, you might
Yeah,
as well lie, cheat, and steal to better yourself one last time. I mean, it's terrible
exactly.
advice,
Yeah,
but, if it's gonna save your life, I'd say go for it.
yeah. Go for it. Definitely go for it.
But man, thank you so much for this, and, I really appreciate everything that you do for the recovery community. I appreciate you taking your time today. I know you're super busy, dude, so thank you so much, man, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate everything, and thank you for the opportunity.
Of course, man. Thank you. You have a great day.
Yes, you too.